we are going to discuss class 9 history, chapter 3, Buddhism and Janism. 6th century BC in the world is considered as the emergence of great thinkers like Confucius in China, Zoroaster in Persia, Lord Mahavira and Gautama Buddha in India, etc. It was also a period of orthodox religious beliefs and the practices were challenged. Here, what do you mean by orthodox beliefs? You know that for that we have to go back to the Vedic period. We have learned that Vedic period is divided into early Vedic period and later Vedic period. The class system emerged in India during the Vedic period. But early Vedic period it was very simple, but the later Vedic period the class system became so rigid, so that there came into exist inequality in the society. Why? Because Brahmins took over the supremacy of the society. They even interpreted the Vedas in such a way that everything favored them, and they gave more importance to the rituals and other kind of practices, so that common man struggled a lot in the society. Kshatriyas also enjoyed a good position in the society next to Brahmanas, but Vaishyas and Shudras were considered as the downtrodden people and they had no dignity in the society. It was also a period of existence of several social evils and practices. Even women, they lost their position in the society. So, a kind of suffocation felt by the people of the society, and people wanted to come out of the limits and boundaries of all such kind of social changes created by the supremacy of the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. In order to challenge the existing system, there emerged numerous religious groups during this period in the 6th century BC in India. So this group together, all the religious sects, together it is named as heterodox sects. And the famous historian R.C. Majumdar, in his studies, he says that around 72 religious sects emerged in India during this period to challenge the supremacy of the Brahmins. So the two prominent religions which emerged during this period were Buddhism and Jainism. So we mainly focus on Buddhism and Jainism, the two religious or two major religious movements which is held in India in the 6th century BC are Buddhism and Jainism. So now we will discuss in detail about Buddhism and Jainism. So what are the features which help us to study the Buddhism and Jainism here? You see, for every history we mainly depend upon sources, and we have discussed about sources in detail in previous video. When you turn the pages of your history chapters, you can find that in every chapter you find the sources. Why sources are given? Because we mainly depend upon those sources to obtain the reliable information about the particular era or a person or event. So here mainly we mainly depends upon certain sources to know about the history of Buddhism and Jainism. Which are those important sources? They are Ankas, Upankas, Tripitakas and Jatakas. What are Ankas? Ankas are the teachings of Lord Mahavira, and there are 12 Ankas. 12 Anka here means what? Anka means parts. So it has got 12 parts. So there are 12 Ankas. Then each Anka has got auxiliary book. So 12 Ankas has got 12 auxiliary books. Auxiliary books here mean the supplementary books. We use guide, for help. Guides are the supporting books of the main books. So we use the guide and all for certain references, for the explanation of certain terms and concepts. Similar way, there are 12 Upankas. These 12 Upankas are the supplementary books of 12 Ankas. So we use the Upankas for the reference of Ankas. Then these Ankas, do you think these Ankas are written by Lord Mahavira? No. This Lord Mahavira's teachings are orally transmitted from generation to generation, and finally these were compiled by his disciple in the form of 12 Ankas and 12 Upankas, and they held two Jains council. In that council, what do you mean by here council? Here in the council, they invite all the monks, Jain monks. They come together and they hold the meetings, they hold the discussions and the debates, and finally they reach into a conclusion and decide that how the books are to be written, which are the teachings, and all the important decisions are taken. According to the decision, they have made 12 Ankas and 12 Upankas. It is in that councils mainly these decisions are taken to form these 12 Ankas and 12 Upankas. So the Jain religious books are popularly known as Agamas. So Agamas means what? 12 Ankas and 12 Upankas. So I hope that this Ankas and Upankas are clear to you. Next we discuss Tripitakas. What are Tripitakas? Tripitakas are the religious books of Buddhism. And the meaning of the term Tripitaka is three basket. Here, why the term Tripitaka or three basket is used? Because since these are written in many years ago, what happened? The writings these writings are made on long, narrow leaves and preserved in three baskets. That is why the term Tripitakas or three baskets are used. Now, which are the three baskets here? Vinaya Pitaka, Sutta Pitaka and Abhidhamma Pitaka. So, Buddhist teachings are concluded in three baskets. They are called Vinaya Pitaka, Sutta Pitaka and Abhidhamma Pitaka. Now, what is meant by Vinaya Pitaka here? You see, Vinaya Pitaka in that particular basket or in that particular book consists of the rules and regulations to be followed by Buddhist monks, and also it deals with the life or history of Buddha, and it also says about the art and customs etc. of that particular period. Next comes Sutta Pitaka. Sutta Pitaka gives us the information about the discussions and the speeches held by Buddha and also by his disciples in different occasions. Next comes Abhidhamma Pitaka. What is Abhidhamma Pitaka? It mainly deals with the philosophical teaching. What do you mean by philosophical teaching? The teachings or the subject which deals with the mind and matter. That means it says about the spiritual life, moral life and the materialistic world and all these. Next comes Jatakas. What are Jatakas? Jatakas tales. You must have heard about Jataka tales. If you go to a library, there are a number of Jataka tales. Stories are there. You should read very interesting stories. And these are the stories of previous birth of Lord Buddha. You can see he is meeting with number of people, and so these stories gives us a lot of information about different period and different events, and it also gives us information about the social, political and economic and religious life of the period. Mainly it gives us the information from 5th century to 2nd century, 5th century to 2nd century BC. Why 5th century BC to 2nd century BC here we use? Because BC always go backwards, because all these events took place. Buddhism and Janism arose in the period of 6th century BC. Then after that it goes to after 6th century, then 5th century, then 4th century, because BC always goes backward. Then finally 1st century BC. Then after 1st century BC there begins with 1st century AD. So next, so that is why 5th century BC to 2nd century BC. Now we discuss the causes for the rise of Jainism and Buddhism. There are a number of causes mentioned here. You can see here. Now we discuss each point in detail. You see, in the introduction I have told you the main reason for that. So why? Because this religion emerged as a challenge against the Brahmanism or the religion, which religion? Vedic religion. It is this Vedic religion only later on emerged as Hinduism. Okay. So many challenged this Vedic religion why it had a lot of drawbacks. So we are going to discuss all the reason why they challenged the Brahmanism or the supremacy of Brahmanism and the religion which is existed during the later Vedic period. One of the important reason is that reaction against ritualism. Now what do you mean by the term ritualism? Rituals, the pujas and yajnas and several ceremonies are held in different occasions. Means even now the Hindus know several occasions, rituals and pujas and all conducted. So everywhere we need some purohits. So in during this period also, Brahmins were called for conducting all kinds of rituals, including yajnas, pujas and ceremonies, etc. So they made the rituals very complex and confusing, and it became so expensive, and common man could not afford for this kind of rituals. So that people wanted something very simple religion to be followed, because they were completely confused and by this complex religious condition and ritualism. And the next point we discuss is that corruption in religion. You know that, children, Vedas, we have got 4 Vedas. We have learned in detail about 4 Vedas in previous classes. Vedas are the treasure house of great knowledge. Even scientific explanations are given in Vedas, which are not brought into the light of the common people even now. Why? Because these Vedas are written in Sanskrit language, and so during this period, Brahmanas, they misinterpreted the Vedas. Why? Because Sanskrit language was the right of learning. Sanskrit language was given to only Brahmins. So others could not read or write this Sanskrit language, so they could not read the Vedas. So Brahmins, they misinterpreted the teachings of Vedas, and they made the situation in such a way that the Brahmins, they gained prominence in the society, and they made the presence of Purohit or Brahmin in every occasions and ceremonies, and also they made the performance of rituals compulsory. And so in the name of religion, Brahmins, they exploited the people in the society. So they wanted to have some relief from such kind of exploitation. So they wanted to go for a simple religion, and Buddhism and Janism gave the opportunity for that simplicity of the religion. And next we discuss rigid caste system. Now, what is that we learned about in Vedic period? We studied there emerged the 4 class system. Which are the 4 classes emerged? Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. These were the 4 classes emerged during the Vedic period, and later Vedic period this caste system became so rigid. And early Vedic period, why? Because it was followed only by the occupation. So they could change the occupation. So only in the name of occupation this religion was, this caste system was there. But later Vedic period it became so complex, and for example, if a person take birth in Vaishya's family, the lifelong he had to do the manual work and other agriculture, etc. Even though he wanted to become a Purohit or he wanted to learn Vedas, etc. So there was no hope of changing his occupation. He had to remain as it is. So the people, traders, Vaishyas were traders. Lifelong the members and the children who overtake birth, they had to follow the same occupation. So their status always remained same in the society. So there was no social mobility or social change took place in the society. That is what here rigid caste system. And the next is that difficult language. So we already learned that means Vedas are written in which language? It's are written in Sanskrit language. So common man could not follow Sanskrit language because only it was learned by the Brahmins. So what is that? The language is so difficult because all the mantras, everything is recited in Sanskrit. You know that even Sanskrit mantras we are not able to follow. But all the prayers and rituals are all held by Purohits in Sanskrit. So the language was so difficult for the people. So they wanted very simple language to understand during the time of performing their prayer and pujas and rituals. So they wanted to make their prayer meaningful. And the next is that political situation. Now, what do you mean by political situation? You know, during the 6th century BC in Magadha was ruled by Ajatashatru. So these rulers, those rulers who ruled during the 6th century BC, they were very tolerant and means very much cared for their subjects or people. At the same time, they did not want the Brahmin supremacy in their affairs, and so that they supported the common people, and especially they supported the Buddhist and Jain monks to flourish these religions. So the political situation was in such a way that Buddhism and Jainism could flourish because these religious sects were patronized by some of the rulers, especially Magadhan rulers in 6th century BC. And now we discuss agricultural economy. You know, children, India has got an agrarian economy, and major population of our country means they are doing farming. They are farmers. And in the ancient period, no, most of the population, almost everyone was doing agriculture, isn't it? So they, especially they reared animals and cattle they had. So they didn't want their cattle to be killed because that is their livelihood, isn't it? So according to that Vedic, in the later Vedic period, for sacrifices and pujas and all, animals were sacrificed, animals were killed to sacrifice them to God. So they did not want such kind of practices. Why? Because they wanted not to kill their animals. So Buddhism and Jainism, you know that means they upholded the values like ahimsa, non-violence, etc. So they wanted such kind of religion which protect their animals. So children, now I am concluding this chapter here. Further topics will be discussed in another video. Please go through the video and read out the lesson, and all the important points are mentioned here, and so many other irrelevant points and terms are given in the textbook which I could not explain here. You can just avoid it for the time being and learn it in very simple manner.